All right, let's
Podcast
go.
take two.
Podcast take two, because my husband just walked in and ruined the other one. Oh my gosh, he just got fired.
Yeah,
fired.
we
as
decided to scrap it and just start again.
I'm glad we know now. Just not go there.
Yeah, let's not get him on as a guest ever.
No, he's been permanently uninvited to be a podcast guest, unless he's good and drunk and fun. Otherwise, no. Fired. Just fired Sean Campbell. Well, anywho, can you please tell everybody your super exciting Christmas news, because it really is a big deal. It's really a big deal.
It was like a super, super exciting Christmas present arrived at my door, even though it's only September and it's not even Christmas.
In September, it's the best time. What did you get?
But I got the Encyclopedia Fairies. I'm trying to hold it up to the screen, and because we've got these stupid things, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
But it is the Catherine Briggs Bible.
It is a Bible. If that book
is the Bible.
Amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah, and it's out of print and it's super hard to get and it's super expensive.
Yes.
But I managed to bag a cheapy one on eBay.
No, and I hate you a little for that, actually. But I'm glad. I'm glad.
And I can't wait to sit and read it all. It looks so good.
It is so amazing. It's so good. You know what? She does the perfect job of giving you a lot of detail from the first person sources.
Mm-hmm.
And like synthesizing their findings without losing, but also like telling it in a nice story way as well. Like she does the perfect
she writes
mix.
In a really nice way, doesn't she?
She does, but she lives in all the good juice, and she also is so just storytelling and how she lists the sources. I mean, that's what got me on all of these, going down this rabbit hole of first sources. As she's just everything about her resources, the breadth of the knowledge that she brings, all the sources. She's amazing. That book is the Bible of fairy folklore.
I know.
I'm so glad you have a copy.
I know. I am also can stop the search now, because you know when you get like a little bit tired of always searching for something that you want to buy, but you're trying to get a good deal, and you just spend fucking ages trying to get this good deal, and then once you've got it, you're like, oh, thank God I don't have to waste hours of my life trying to Google for this thing anymore.
But some of these books are like $500. Like you have to search. Like they are literally hundreds of dollars, some of these. So it's worth waiting, because who the heck can spend $500 on a book? But that book in particular kind of is worth $500. Like it's that good. So if you can get it for $50, that's amazing.
I know. I got it for £50, which is a lot of money to spend on one book, but it's actually a thick hardback 400 odd page book. It is a super big book.
So this one was 70, and I'm not sorry that I got it. This one was like 500 on the Amazon sellers. So when I saw it for 70, I was like, I'm getting that. And
Karen is holding up the Peat Fire Flame, by the way. The one that
and it's massive. It's massive, and it's old, and it smells delicious.
Oh, I love the smell of
and there's like 500 stories in here. It's fantastic. It's like the best buy ever. And oh my God, that marble phone. Did you see that marble phone I bought at the antique sale? Wasn't that amazing?
I can just imagine you standing with a fancy like cocktail in one hand and a 1920s dress, like you're something out of Downton Abbey.
Oh my God,
and
I wish.
Then answering the phone with with one hand with your cocktail and like a fancy glass, and then like a beaded dress.
Well, I kept doing that when I came home with it, and I put it on the kitchen island, and my kids would walk in, and I'd be like, oh wait, and I'd pick up the phone and be like, hello, and my phone, and they're just like looking at me like, I hate you so much. Like, why is my mom so weird? And I'll be like, isn't it the most beautiful thing you've ever seen? And they're just like, and they just like walk out of the room. You're like, you're a loser.
They knew what it was, actually, because phones have changed so much over the last 30 years I'm surprised they knew it was a phone. I remember when I was teaching art in primary school, trying to explain the whole concept of cameras that had film in them and viewfinders that didn't have a digital screen, and you couldn't see the photograph until you got it developed.
Right.
And they just did not get it because they hadn't even like, imagine being of the age where that isn't even in your life anymore. Like it's actually extinct by the time you come.
I know. Well, it's so funny that you said that, because Sean and I, it was a few years ago. It was quite a while ago, maybe 5 years ago. We were on vacation and some video was passed around on Facebook or YouTube, and it was about kids. Like someone had put a real connected phone with like a dial tone. It was like a landline phone in the middle of a room, and they had kids walk in and they were like, okay, make a phone call. And they were like, go ahead. And the kids didn't know how to work the phone. They would like dial it without picking up the receiver. They would just start pushing the numbers or dialing it. And they didn't know, they couldn't do it. It was hilarious. I'm like,
that's so funny.
Oh my God. Right. So then we did that experiment with our kids. So we got a phone, and because we were like, there's no way, of course our kids are going to know how to use a phone. So we got a landline phone and we put it in the room, and we were like, okay, go. And they did. They had no idea. And I was like, I cannot believe that's like the world that they live in right now, that they like, you haven't seen that on TV. Like you think surely they've seen a movie or a TV show or a YouTube video where someone was operating like a landline so that they would know. They had no idea. No idea. How weird is that?
It is like so weird.
Dinosaurs all of a sudden. So weird. But anywho,
talking of first-hand books, because we're going to jump into our
we're going to jump in any minute now.
I have to tell you that I spent the whole morning researching, looking in loads of different books and finding loads of little quite funny individual stories about the GLAISTIC, because we're going to speak about the GLAISTIC this week. And then right at the end, I picked up Superstitions of the Highlands and Islands of Scotland, and I opened it up and I found, haven't had time to read any of them, a whole chapter or like a whole section.
Yeah.
There's like 20 pages just on the GLAISTIC.
Yes.
And I think that all the funny little stories that I found
are from there.
In all of my other books actually came from this book.
They
and
did.
And they've just so obviously you're now going to get them third hand, because you're going to get the author of the book that I read's version of the GLAISTIC story that was originally in the proper version, and by the time I tell it, and I probably changed things because that's how I am, it might not even be the real version, but we'll have fun with it anyway, because
so I just have to interrupt real quick, because that's what we do. We need to leave that part in of our botched first. That's in the intro that we need to leave in. Why we get so excited, and that's why we talk over each other. That part we need to leave in. You're looking at me like you don't know what I'm talking about. Please.
No, I'm just thinking that just to leave that bit in will be an awful lot of trying to find bits to stick in.
Come on,
you could just explain it again. No, go on. That's quicker.
You're probably right. Anyways, so that's funny because this book, the Peat Fire Flame book, has an entire chapter on GLAISTICs as well.
Really?
Yeah, a whole chapter. And that's why I'm excited to, even though I wasn't properly prepared, he has a great intro on it. And then it's followed by all these little stories, all these little accounts, all these little castles where they have their own one. So let's dive in. It's so fun.
Yeah, so we can explain what the GLAISTIC is, and then I'll have some stories and you'll have some stories, and probably your stories. I'm hoping your stories will be different.
They should be, because it's first source
from my stories. But the GLAISTIC is essentially some kind of spirit that is attached to a building or a house or an area rather than an actual family. That's the impression I got.
Mm-hmm.
It was attached to the actual area or the building, and there's an awful lot of green lady ghosts in Scotland, and I think the green lady ghosts are actually sometimes GLAISTICs, because
I think they all are GLAISTICs.
do you think all of them
I
are?
think they are.
Easily could be.
I think
Maybe
so.
they are.
I feel like how could they not be? They all have the same seemingly characteristics.
Yeah, so there's a few different characteristics for GLAISTICs, but they're all kind of similar. They're a woman. She is either wearing a green dress or a gray dress, and she's sometimes thin, she's sometimes got long yellow hair, and sometimes her hair is slightly damp or dripping, which is kind of ugly sounding. I'm sure that's not the only fairy creature that is.
Do you think it's just because she's
dripping hair?
I mean, it reminds me of the Kelpie, who's always dripping.
I know.
But also, GLAISTICs are also a lot of times associated with see, this is, well, I don't want to dive into the inconsistencies, but the description you already gave is exactly what is written in this book as well. But there are some accounts when they're saying that they're associated with water. So it's like they kind of have similarities with quite a few other supernatural beings as well, but water is one of them. So I don't know if the water one, and they are tutelary spirits, so they are attached to places and not people. So maybe those ones are the ones that are attached to like water sources versus a castle interior. And then a lot of them are seem to be farmers where they're looking after cattle as well. So those
definitely
are like
cattle was a big thing, right? Yeah, they're like super attached to cattle. They help to look after the cattle, but there's always conditions, of course. And it's this thing of the GLAISTIC is a helpful ghost. And I don't even know if she's a ghost. Some say that she's actually was a human that has been taken over by the fairies and turned into fairy form.
Yeah, that's what
like a fairy creature rather than a ghost, although a lot of the castle ghosts that are called green ladies are seen as being ghosts, which are like dead people, which really confused me because there's a few GLAISTIC stories where it's actually somebody who's alive and they can touch them. So it's like a fairy creature.
I know. So do you want to know what I think?
Yes, I do. Of course.
This is my professional folklore opinion.
Yes.
I believe also that these are not ghosts and that they were humans and that they were cursed by the fae. And so that now they have these supernatural tendencies, characteristics.
Yeah.
What I think is so weird is that some of them have children, which is
really? I've not come across that, so I can't wait to hear that.
Yes, I have, and I don't have it in this book, but I came across a few sources that said that they had children, which I think is super creepy, but it also like reinforces the fact that they were, I think, human at some point. But I feel like all of the green lady ghosts, I feel like they all can be dumped into the GLAISTICs category because they all sound exactly what that is. They're all green. They're all wearing. They all appear as the same thing. So I think it's like just a mislabeling. It's like just like a mislabel kind of thing.
Now it's also said that they have goat feet that they hide with their long dress. And I'm trying to remember, I think it was only episode 2, probably way back when we were even more rubbish than we are now, which is a little bit hard to believe, to be honest.
We are really bad. Yeah.
That when we did the Green Lady of Crathis Castle, I've got a funny feeling she had goat feet, didn't she? But I might be wrong.
I can't remember about her feet, but I do remember the episode. And when I'm learning about these, I'm like, isn't that just the green lady of that? That just sounds just like her. And I think it's interesting too how the glass sticks are so solitary. They're never seen ever with a secondary one unless it's an offspring, which is rare, but it does happen. But they also have
family of glass sticks.
No families, but that's just like the Urisks, who are also male, who are also solitary, who are also half fae.
Why don't they get together?
Why don't they get together?
They'd make a good couple.
They're like perfect for each other.
Except, would you really want to be saddled with a Urisk if you were a glass stick? He's so depressing.
Yeah.
Come on.
He's very unpredictable too. You don't know if you're going to get beat or if you're going to be led to a safe place.
No.
Very unpredictable.
That's a little bit of a toxic.
But they sound, physically, they sound really similar to one another, which I think is fascinating. And they're just solitary, goaty.
That doesn't mean that they should be a couple. Just because they're a good couple in theory doesn't mean that they should be a couple.
I beg to differ. I think they would look great together. They would make an amazing couple, and so therefore they should be together and have little cute
on getting them together.
Oh, babies! I want to see if they get along.
I've got this image of like the Uris, like applying for The Bachelor and like walking down with his like one rose, except it wouldn't be a rose, it would be something else that he carries that's suitably fairy-like. And then all these women all in green dresses, but all standing away from each other because they don't want to be associated with each other.
And they're solitary with their long, nasty, greasy hair down to their feet. Like they're gray.
They're goat feet.
They're disgusting. But yet, you know, I feel like it's because so according to what's his face, Alistair McGregor, he says that they're thin gray women with yellow hair reach to their heels.
I know. That sounds disgusting.
So gross. But then they're known as the green glass stick. So it's like, I feel like they are the green ladies. They are the green ghosts.
Yeah.
They must be one and the same.
They must be.
Although, let me ask you this though, but are they? Because do the green ladies, are they ever helpful? Like, I don't feel like they're useless. And actually the glass sticks they're very brownie-like because they do chores.
They do chores sometimes, but they don't always do chores. Sometimes they are a little bit naughty, but you're right. The green lady ghosts of these, there are millions, maybe not millions, because there's not that many castles in Scotland. There are lots of green millions of green lady. Welcome to Scotland. We have millions of green lady ghosts.
Come and see. Nowhere else do we have a high concentration of green ghosts.
We've got millions of green lady ghosts in Scotland. I'm sticking by that assertion.
Why I love it so much.
And I just got the idea they were floaty.
Yes,
they were like a floating around that just floated through the castle
with like dead eyes. Ugh. I can't.
So you're freaking out.
Every time I see it, if I ever saw one, I would die. I can't.
Come on. She would have a little friend.
I wouldn't mind floating around with a friend. I'm not going to lie, but I don't want to see one. I like it better when they're invisible, but the glass sticks were barely ever seen. They were almost always invisible, which I find
like a wee helpful neighbor at night.
Yeah. And I find it so interesting that there's such a hard line between the ones that are like helping with the cattle and then the ones that are helping in the house and then the ones that are like hanging out by a water source. Like just seems so very different, you know?
Yeah, but they've all got the same name.
Yes.
And then also they don't always help out. So they only help out if you help them out. So just like with other fairy creatures that you would need to make sure you don't piss off in order to get the help you need, GLAISTICs want you to leave some milk in a special GLAISTIC stone, which is a hollow stone, and you need to leave milk out for them. And then if you do that, and it's a cattle helping GLAISTIC, not a house helping GLAISTIC, then they will help look after your cattle. So apparently there was one where the GLAISTIC would keep the calves away from the cows overnight so that there was enough milk for the farmer in the morning, because obviously if the calves got to the cows, which of course, like, why would the calves not want to go and actually get the milk that's due?
Well, and they do
them.
Yeah.
Well, I know, but it's like a little bit, let's, I can understand everyone wants to drink milk, but the poor calves not getting the milk that's for them. That's what makes me think of. But she used to make sure that the calves were away so that the farmer would have milk in the morning. But if you forgot to leave the milk, would forget to do that job, so that it buggered up the farmer's plans.
Right.
So you still have to be careful with the GLAISTIC. They're not just like helping out around the house without any thought of any payment or repercussion or anything like that. There's still an element of
intellect,
wanting a payment for it.
Well, I know, and
I'm not doing this job for free.
Well, agreed, and that's definitely in line with the stories that I was reading. But I also feel like they have a lot in common with poltergeists, because
yes,
they're super invisible and they seem to have an intelligence around them. That was what I learned out of our podcast episode, was really marked for me, which I didn't like appreciate, because I spent my whole life like running from poltergeists and not learning about them. And so the fact that they are like invisible but also can make themselves heard, they can move objects around as well in quite like a punishing kind of manner, like if they're displeased with some things. So there was like so I have a story. This is about like can I read you a little story?
Yes, please.
All right, so this is from this same the Peat Fire Flame. So it says, not unlike the activities of the brownie were the activities of the GLAISTIC. This one in particular took her residence up at the farmhouse in Glendore, which is in Argyll. This GLAISTIC interested herself chiefly in the Glendore cattle, and she regarded it as a special duty to prevent the calves from suckling their mothers during the night, which is exactly what you were just teaching us about. This GLAISTIC did not follow the tenants of the farm from place to place. The farmhouse was her permanent residence. So that's why they're tutelary. So they don't travel around. They're like stuck to one place. Incoming tenants were told of hers by those outgoing and were handed over to her charge, certainly so far as the milk giving stock was concerned. This GLAISTIC, it said, was alive as late as 1870 and may still be alive for all we know. And that's so cute, because this book was published in 1936. So those who claim to have seen her described her facial expression as resembling a gray stone overgrown with lichen.
Oh, I think I've read that story somewhere.
How cool is that?
I think it's also yeah, I'm just better make sure that I don't repeat that one.
Okay. So
that sounds so weird, just
I know, right? Like I'm trying to like visualize that. So when she was displeased by something, she would punish them the next day and allowing the calves to meet with their mother so that there was no milk for their porridge the next day.
Yeah.
And then it goes on to say that when a servant lassie at this farm was asked whether she had any fear of giving displeasure to the GLAISTIC, she ridiculed the idea. She's like, whatever, that's not a thing. The result was that when she was proceeding to a stream nearby to obtain a pail full of water in the dark, she received a sharp slap on the cheek that gave a twist to her neck. And then it says, and then when on the same errand the following evening, she received another slap on the other cheek that corrected the twist. Isn't that so funny? She got smacked and then was like stuck, and then she got smacked again. And then
I've got a whole cartoon image there of like this
hilarious?
girl with her neck that is all twisted round, but she can't move it for like a whole day.
And then the next
until
day,
it's slapped back.
Yeah, and that's the GLAISTIC just like backhanding her, like, you dumb lassie, like, whoosh, like giving her a good smack. So the things like that, which are like naughty and physical, remind me very much of poltergeist activity.
Yeah, I mean, I have a few here as well where like there's one from another castle in our Argyllshire. I think there seems to be an awful lot of GLAISTIC stories from Argyllshire.
Yes.
And this castle was built in the 15th century, and it was apparently the MacDougall family home. And you could see at dusk, you could see the GLAISTIC making her way to the castle to do work overnight. So she must have lived on the grounds or something, and she would sweep the floors and wash the clothes of the people that lived there. But apparently this GLAISTIC was moody, and she would put dust in the family's meals.
Oh, that's mean and
just really
gross.
That
is.
But check this out. He would never do it to her favorite resident. And the favorite resident was the fool that was attached to the castle.
Oh, interesting.
The castle jester.
Right. Fascinating.
So he didn't get any dust put in his food. Now, if I were a skeptic like Sean Campbell and I was going to say, let's have a explanation for that, perhaps the fool was the one putting dust in people's food.
Right.
Maybe he was pissed off that he was the fool. Can you imagine if you had to be the castle fool and everyone makes fun of you?
Not even having this conversation, because it was obviously the GLAISTIC that did all of it.
Of course it was the GLAISTIC. Of course. So like, yeah, like just like with the cattle, if they were doing a household chore thing and they got annoyed by anything that the residents of the house, they would do things
to bug them
to
on
upset
purpose.
Those which are so poltergeisty.
I know.
So here I've got a list of they would disturb the bedclothes, they would move things, they would throw stones. That is so poltergeist behavior right there.
I know, especially after listening to the Battersea Poltergeist. I feel like I understand like everything that they do now. And definitely the bed sheet. I have the same thing. I have a story that said about 100 years ago, so that would have been early 1800s, there was in Strathglass a shepherd, and the GLAISTIC took a great liking to this shepherd, which is just like poltergeist. They like have favorites, and she insisted on residing with him. So at times the shepherd found his unsolicited mate very aggravating. She would pull the coverlet off his bed in the small hours. That's exactly what Donald used to do to the girl, right? The poor thing. She would pull the coverlet off his bed in the small hours and giggle while she did it. And then when
fancied him.
Yeah. So when, for instance, he placed his jacket on a dike while working in the open, he would return to the spot to find the jacket gone. But if he returned a second time, it would be there just as he had left it. Like she was messing with him. Milk and cheese on occasions used to disappear from the dairy, but then never for long. And it was believed that this was the GLAISTIC's way of annoying the family. So yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like she had a little bit of a fancy for that
Yeah.
shepherd.
And she was like, come on, pay attention to me. Like
Yeah,
me.
she
Like
was
I'm
trying to get
here.
attention. It totally sounds like
Yes.
poltergeist activity,
No,
doesn't
it
it?
totally sounds exactly like that. And the poor
Yeah.
household, they said they tried all these things to stop her from doing things. And this is where it sounds really poltergeisty too, where they're trying everything, like knock it off. You know, you try to be nice, you try to be mean. They were nailing holly sprigs above the doors. They tried to like put Bibles around to try to like counteract that. And like they just said nothing worked. They said often these precautions were just of no avail. And that's so poltergeisty. They just are, they're such a, they're harassing, physically harassing to these poor people.
So. I have a story where this GLAISTIC actually cursed a woman.
Oh, tell me.
So this takes place in Iona, which is a little island off the west coast of Scotland. It's actually a super cool island. There's Iona Abbey. It was
all right. Okay.
Where were we? We were at the GLAISTIC that was in Iona. This story is so weird. Like it just is, you know how there's a lot of GLAISTIC stories that are very similar to each other. So they're green ladies, they've got goat feet, they herd cattle, they sweep floors, and they're all very similar. Well, this one isn't. In fact, I've got two that don't fit in with the norm, but they're still called GLAISTICs.
Interesting.
So this one, there was a woman, and her name was Livingston. That was her surname. And she lived in a little cottage in Iona, and she was visited by this GLAISTIC that it was horrible weather and the GLAISTIC wanted shelter in her house. So again, it's not even a spirit that's attached to the house already. It's like a visiting creature, but it's called a GLAISTIC.
See, that sounds like a Urisk to me, because the Urisks would seek shelter inside during the winter months. Well,
maybe it was
telling you. I know. The supernatural categorizers need to get their shit together, because I think that's like a female Urisk. I'm just saying.
So this woman, this GLAISTIC, visited this house and she was all wet. So she asked if she could dry herself in front of the fire. But she got a little bit too close to the fire and her clothes set a light, which again, so she wasn't a ghost, because she wasn't like a see-through ghost. She was a actual creature. Right. So her clothes were set alight by the fire, and this GLAISTIC was really annoyed that this had happened. And even though it wasn't this woman, whose second name was Livingston, but we don't know what her first name is, it wasn't her fault at all. In fact, she was quite nice for letting this GLAISTIC in and sitting by the fire, but the GLAISTIC cursed her. And in fact, the GLAISTIC did not just curse her. GLAISTIC cursed everyone with the name of Livingston and said that no fire can be kindled at dinner time by a woman of the name Livingston.
That's not nice.
How specific is that curse? If your name is Livingston and you've got a fire and you try and light it at dinner time, it's not happening. That's the curse.
Which is when you need the fire the most, because you're trying to cook your meal. Oh, see? Poltergeists are assholes, and so can these ones be as well.
I know.
They very like express their opinions very abruptly and roughly, and like I don't know, they they're very physical beings, which is, you know, terrifying actually, and creepy considering their looks. They have their goat legs, their nasty long greasy yellow hair, and then they like come and they curse you. Like there's this like a big problem.
But do you know what's funny, Karen? These are supposed to be the nicer of the faerie creatures. That's
true. I do feel like we need to actually art these up at some point as well. We could make some hilarious artwork based on these. Oh, speaking of artwork, real quick, the Celtic Collective is open right now. I just have to throw that in there.
Only till the 3rd of October.
Till Sunday. It's Thursday right now as we're filming this, because we really work ahead We work ahead by 0.01 seconds. We record every
we're
day
recording
of,
on the day.
yes, which is a common occurrence, which
a weekly occurrence
would bother normal people, but we're used to always drowning in our own blood, sweat, and tears. But yeah, the Celtic Collective is a big deal because it's a big deal that doors are open because they're never open, but they're open actually right now. So if you love art and you love painting and drawing, we need to invite you to come hang out with us because that's what we actually do every single day. We podcast and talk about fairies once a week, but we actually are creating art 7 days a week. So that's our true thing. So if anybody wants to come, go to onescotonot.com and you can check out our art club and actually join from there, but only until Sunday. So move your buns and come hang out with us because it's actually,
and that website, that link's got other cool stuff. If you want to leave us a message or a spooky story,
or you have questions,
submit it there.
Yes, or
if you want to see our book recommendations, you can find them there. And if you want to find out more about each podcast episode, you can also find it there. So head over to our website.
Do
you want to hear my last GLAISTIC story?
Yeah. And then I have one little baby one to share with you too.
Okay. Because this is a weird one. This is one that a GLAISTIC isn't even a woman.
What? Oh, no. And we forgot to talk about the other thing too. Okay, go. I almost forgot about the offspring situation.
You can remind me after I finish my story.
Okay.
This GLAISTIC appeared as a dog.
Oh yeah. These stories are all in the Peat Fire Flame book, by the way.
I think we had the same stories. This GLAISTIC appeared as a dog herding cattle, like a sheepdog.
Okay, which is also weird because they make a big deal to say how afraid the GLAISTICs are of dogs. They're like terrified. And then this one, I saw that same thing and I'm like, how can you be terrified but also be a dog? How is that happening?
I know.
Who was thinking these things up?
Apparently faerie creatures are terrified of dogs because dogs can look into their real, see their real.
Oh, is that why?
Intent.
I wanted to know.
Which I would believe actually, because dogs can sense when somebody is aggressive or dodgy. I always feel it.
So true.
And they can also sense when someone is a total walkover softie like me.
Yeah, I think that's why Maggie likes me so much. She's literally always there.
I think dogs can tell that I'm like a sucker because I love them so much.
Yes.
But also they can tell if you're like
an asshole,
an asshole guy.
Yes.
It might be a woman, but usually it's
no,
guys.
they can. So they're dogs.
So this GLAISTIC was a dog, and it was herding the cattle. And some men tried to steal the cattle. And so the GLAISTIC herded them away. The cats herded the cattle away. And the GLAISTIC then stopped the thieves by turning them into grey stones.
Whoa.
So the GLAISTIC not only can be a dog, but can also, like, let's break with all tradition with this one. Not only is the GLAISTIC a dog, not a woman, but the GLAISTIC can also perform magic by turning people into stone.
Why is
these stones are from Mull, somewhere on Mull.
Oh,
yeah. Then later on in this story, because the GLAISTIC, I think, not only was a dog, but was a shapeshifter dog. So it actually was a woman who had shapeshifted into a dog to herd the cattle.
Okay. Did someone see her do her transition, her like Hollywood shape-shifting moment when she goes from goat feedy lady to like cute working cattle dog?
Hang on a minute, Karen Campbell, are you now saying Mrs. like super believer in everything fairy that you want visual proof of this one?
I just want to see it. I want somebody to make a movie of it so I can actually see how I want that vision to come to life.
Just imagine the Twilight movies when Jacob turns into the wolf. It's the same kind of thing.
Oh my god, so good.
Not that I'm admitting that I watched that.
Oh, what? I love them.
Yeah,
What team
I
are you
did.
on?
I
I'm
did
Team
watch them.
Edward all day long, even though he's a little scrawny, but that's okay. He does shine like diamonds after all. So scrawny.
I don't think I'm team either of them, really.
No. They're like 2 years old. Anyways, that's a really crazy story, and I wish I could see that transformation.
Yeah. So she turned into a woman.
Oh,
and
she
then
turned
she
back.
died.
Oh, what?
So she was like an alive woman.
See?
And then she got buried. But because she was a supernatural being and not an actual
So confusing.
woman, she was buried in the unconsecrated ground.
Oh, poor thing. She
I
deserved
know.
better.
After all of that castle
How do
wrestling,
you
all of that castle wrestling, the cattle
bury?
wrestling.
How do you bury like a half human? Like when you go to chuck the dirt on it, does like some of it hit them, but then some of it falls through to the other side? So
No,
you have to like
need a very big
keep
box to fit those
doing
goat
it
feet in.
over. Do they get wooden coffins, or do they just chuck them
Well,
in a
it's
grave?
like, remember that story that
Yes!
you told last week of
Yes!
the coffin?
Yes, being too small for the
You just need to
ghost.
make sure that there's enough room for the
True.
goat.
They
goat-
get
the
very
goat
annoyed
feet.
so if they don't
Yes.
fit in there correctly. That's so true. Well, I have one more story for you. And yeah,
Okay,
that
I wanna
one is
hear
a
it.
super weird anomaly story. And I don't know.
It is.
I have so
It
many
actually
questions.
did say in that bit that I read that this was unusual because it wasn't the norm for GLAISTICs, but it's still called a GLAISTIC, so maybe they
Yeah.
just were lazy with the name.
Yeah, maybe they were just lazy. I think some of these are wrongly categorized, in my professional
We're getting so scientific.
folklore opinion. Obviously, this one is actually, this is the tail end of the same GLAISTIC who had the crush on the shepherd who would mess with him all the time. So this one is she had quite the reputation because they actually had like traveling groups of people who would come to witness her activities. And so they would come and they would visit the house just to see her. So they would witness her performances and they would listen to the strange noises that would emanate from all sorts of queer corners that when she went rampaging through the house in churlish mood, they say. And then they said one night, as a number of men from a neighborhood farm came in, the pot suddenly left. It went sweeping up into the air and it dropped down onto the kitchen floor before their very eyes, it said. So she was quite dramatic and there were many witnesses. And that sounds to me so much like the poltergeist that we learned, that we heard about.
But she sounds like a kind of a fun poltergeist.
She definitely messed with those guys. Yeah.
I mean, I know we've said this before, but if you were going to be a ghost, like where would you be and what would you do? And that would be fun. Like find a hot guy that you fancy.
Oh, that's true.
Like play around with
I got your sheets at 2 a.m. Yeah. I do love, I can't remember what podcast I was listening to, but then they were like, why doesn't any ghost ever come and hang out at like 2 p.m? Why is it always 2 a.m? And I'm like, oh my God, that's so true. I thought it was really weird too when I was sleeping over in Savannah in our haunted hotel. And I thought it was so weird that so my son fell asleep at 8 and I was like so mad because I was just sitting there alone and terrified with like no one to commiserate about it with. And he said he was awake from 3 to 5 in the morning while I was sleeping.
That's so strange.
Isn't that creepy?
Yeah.
Like, what will come up? And like, what was he doing from like 3 to 5 while I was like dead asleep, And that's what's so scary being in these places.
Are you sure he wasn't the one tickling your feet?
Oh, no. Did somebody turn the water on in the bathroom?
It was not him.
He was sleeping next to me. No, when that happened, he was asleep next to me. And that was just so creepy because I was like, what, did he get woken up by something? And why was it 3? That's a long time. Of course, I'm like, were you terrified? He's like, no, I was annoyed. I couldn't sleep. I'm like, why weren't you afraid? What's wrong with you? I'm like the worst mother on the planet. I'm like, be afraid.
What? You're afraid of all the freaky ghosts.
Like, you should be terrified right now.
Be a bit more scared.
I'm like, what's wrong with
you?
Scared
of those freaky ghosts.
It's terrifying. terrifying.
They woke you up at 3 a.m. on purpose.
No, he didn't even care. I'm like, oh, anyways, you are not my son. But anyways.
But maybe they go somewhere else. Maybe it's like another dimension and they go somewhere else during the day.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I'm up for any explanation, but I haven't heard anyone talk about that. So maybe we should look that up as a podcast episode. Where do ghosts go in the day? And why are they nocturnal? Why are they not diurnal? Oh, and by the way, we were going to talk about real quick. I don't have any sources, but the fact that some glass sticks, and this was very rare, but some of them did have children. So there are documentations and stories of them having like a single offspring that kind of haunted around with them. It was not common. I
did not come across that at all.
I did, and I just don't have my.
So did they have children after they became glass sticks,
yes,
or before they became glass sticks?
I don't know the transition. I just that it was rare, but they said they were always solitary, with the exception where very rarely on occasion they had a child with them, who were also.
I would just be intrigued because you know how we said that these poor glass sticks are single.
Yeah.
So they need a way of making a child, a glass stick child.
They do. But I don't know that you can get hung up on like ghost sex.
I am hung up on it.
But everything else is fine.
Yeah, let's get hung up on ghost sex.
Are they having sex while they're ghosts and then having little ghosty babies who then grow up?
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering.
I don't know. We'll have to do some more research. Stay tuned. I will see. I will go back to my sources on that, but I absolutely did.
We have that email that we can't read out in public.
Oh my God, I forgot all about that. I completely forgot. Yeah, and you guys, seriously, if you have stories, you have to email us. We are way overdue for telling stories, and we've been getting some great stories, but one of them was a little so naughty we actually can't read it out. That's not to say we did not fully appreciate it.
That story was amazing.
But it was like a level of rated R that I'm not sure. They needed like its own, like there's like explicit and then there's like explicit plus, and it probably would be in that category, which we don't have a button for, so we can't read it. But seriously, we need some stories because they make a great addition to any podcast. We have these old-timey stories, and we need some new-timey stories as well. Please send them send them to us. We are all about it.
And I know that we are primarily focusing on Scottish things, but your stories don't have to. We just want your stories.
Yeah, we just want your cool stories from anywhere. Absolutely.
Yeah. For making like if you've bumped into Bigfoot, send us a story.
Oh, that reminds me. My good friend Kate, she's an artist as well. She has ghost stories. I've actually asked her a bunch of times if she'll come on, and she has said yes. She's just been a little in the weeds, but I do have a guest coming up for us. She's coming to Scotland with us, by the way. You don't know her. Yeah, she's awesome. She's awesome. And she told me one story and it was so good. And then I was like, don't tell me anymore. Just save it for the podcast because I don't want to don't worry. Spoiler. But yeah, she has really good stories. And she told me about the Sasquatch Chronicle podcast, which is her huge thing that she is super into as well. So she's into we have a lot of things in common. So
yeah because all these like weird creatures and mythological creatures that are real and fairy creatures that are real of Scotland that we talk about, there's like an equivalent in other countries. So
oh my gosh,
it's equivalent.
Absolutely.
So we totally don't mind speaking about those.
Absolutely.
If you have stories about those and you don't happen to have a Scottish story, we're not going to judge you. Like you're welcome aboard.
Anything under the mythological creature category is a welcome. Any lore, ghost.
Yeah.
We want them all. So bring them to us, please. Just go to One Scott, One Not, and please tell us your stories. Seriously, I'm dying. I'm dying to see them. Well, we need to wrap up because we are doing a live stream in 1.5 hours to talk about the Celtic Collective to whoever is interested in learning more. But you guys can also just go to our website to to see all the cool projects that we have. And we add new projects every single month. We're adding like 6 projects this month.
We're workaholics.
We added like 8 or something last month. Like it's not, we're like, we'll give you one new project from each of us. And then
we
Lucy
can't
and I
help
get
ourselves.
so carried away. I'm like, how about 17 instead? Here you go. So yeah, that's where the fun never ends. But thank you guys for listening. And we will be back next week where I will be way more prepared and we can, although that was, I thought that was thorough. I felt like we did justice to her.
Well, we did our usual. We did our usual last minute
Scrabble.
pull it out of the
our
bag. I was going to say something ruder there, but
yes, you can. Yeah. Well, thank you guys for listening. Please come and share us your stories and we will talk to you again next week about, we are going to do the evil eye. I'm going to do it. Because I said I was. I'm ready. Yeah. Evil eye
super cool.
Coming to you. So watch out, sister. All right. We'll see you next week.
Okay. Bye.